Hi, folks. This is Rick Doc Walker, the DOC.
This is John Kime, and you're listening to the Mess Hall with Rally Captain and Tailgate Ted.
What's going on, Rally? Welcome back from the West Coast, man.
Hey, man, they say the left coast is the best coast, but I'm here to tell you it feels good being back on the East Coast, brother. Let's get it.
Right there with you, man. I went out to Seattle earlier this year for a wedding, and not to knock the place because I don't want to piss anybody off, but I don't know. East Coast is home for me. And if it comes down to East Coast versus West Coast rap, I'm definitely an East Coast guy. So glad to have you back, though, dude. I know that some of our listeners have been wondering what's going on. Rally is just dialing into the show today. We got no video from him. But if you're checking out the YouTube, you can still see me on here. And we'll still have clips and some different stuff from the actual game. But, man, dude, your trip looked like a blast other than Sunday. I mean, I'm sitting here checking your Instagram feed and everything else. I mean, you stopped at so many spots. Break it down for our listeners. I didn't get a chance to make it out there.
Well, so we stayed at the Embassy Suites in Pioneer Square, which was like a block from the stadium, if even a block. Walked out of the hotel, take a left, and the stadium's right there. Boom. But Friday, got in, chopped it up with a bunch of people who were staying at the hotel who said they listened to the DMV Mess Hall, and we greatly appreciate it. Shout out goes to Omar. Omar stopped me and said, "Man, I'm one of your biggest fans, and I listened to you and Ted on the DMV Mess Hall." So I said, "Omar, I'm going to remember your name and give you a shout." So a big shout out to you. And man, Seattle, the people are very welcoming. I mean, they aren't like any other city that I've been to. Everybody was just nice and kind and just helpful on every level. And no, I don't even think anybody even booed me, man. That's a weird thing. Most stadiums, somebody at least boos you, but nobody even booed me. They were like, "Hey, good game. Hope you have a good game." And I was just like, "Huh, interesting." But so we went to the Space Needle. And once again, everyone was happy, and I, me, I rock my Commander's gear or Redskins gear because I was rocking my old R, the logo R with the hat and vest combo, and people were just digging on it. And they were like, "Man, we really do appreciate seeing," I'll say, Redskins fans, because that's what a lot of them still want to say, Redskins. So I'll say it. We really appreciate seeing so many of you guys out here because we had a huge fan presence out there. I mean, walking the streets, you couldn't go a block without seeing somebody with some type of Commanders, Washington football team, or Redskins gear on.
That's awesome, man.
Oh yeah, man. It was great. And then the mere fact that people knew who I was. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that I have a presence, but I don't feel that I'm a celebrity or anything like that. It's just amazing to people say, "Rally Captain, how you doing, man?" And I'm just like, wow, I just didn't know that many people view me in that light. I just had no clue that they knew me. Um, so that was Friday. Then we went to so Saturday we got up and decided to do a little more tourism stuff. Went to Space Needle, and after the Space Needle, decided to get a bite to eat. Walking down the street, who do I see? Byron Pringle, and and I actually did a little video with him, and if you guys haven't seen it, and he's a real cool dude, and basically, man, he says basically, man, I got a friend for life. And it was just good chopping him up. And he goes, "Anytime I see you, I'm gonna come say hello to you." And there's a picture of me on the sideline with him, and he kept his word. He did that. I was actually shocked that he did because a lot of times, you know, guys, it's game day. They got a lot of stuff on their mind. And, you're focused on the game, not necessarily fans, if you will. And the mere fact that he stopped by and took a short picture with me, I mean, he literally meant what he said. "Hey, man, I'm a friend for life now," and that meant a lot to me.
Did he recognize you from other games, just being in, where you typically are, or,
Yes,
how was it on the street?
he says, "Oh, you that guy that B Rob jumped into the arms last week." And I was like, "Yeah, man." He goes, "Good meeting you, man. I've seen you, but they just, I think more players they see me, but until there's like an off-field experience where they can really
Yeah, like
chop it up with
interaction.
you.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, other than that, I mean, they're, like I said, they're folks in the game, man. They're not trying to be friends with anybody, so to speak. But it was just good that he was able to keep his word, and he said, no matter what, I will always come by and say hello to you. You got a friend for life. Just very, very good feeling. Then
That's
Saturday
awesome.
night, yeah, Saturday night was a rally, and I gotta tell you, man, the rally was a lot better than the previous rallies. They stepped their game up a little bit. I mean, they got some more improvement to go, but for the most part, it was a good rally. And I gotta tell you, man, my hand got tired for signing autographs. I've never signed that many autographs in my life, but Saturday night was the night to get it done, and so it was amazing.
That's great to hear, man. How many fans do you estimate were there at the rally?
Ooh, uh, maybe 150 to 200, possibly.
Okay.
And it could be more, 250. I mean, possibly more. But there was a very good crowd. Uh, I was very happy, and I told Macy, I said, "Hey, you're improving," and she goes, "That's good to hear." And so uh, we talked a couple minutes more about some other things, but other than that, man, it was great. Came back home, not home, but back to the hotel rather, because it was a long day, man. That getting used to that time zone it kills you, bro.
Oh yeah.
It really does. And so woke up at 3 Pacific Northwest time, which was 6, back home, and it's like, okay, now what do I do? But luckily, the Embassy Suites has a great made-to-order breakfast program, so I was able to get that taken care of and get a good breakfast before the game. And man, it was game day, and like you said, the outcome didn't fare how we liked for it to, but at the same time, man, it was a good game. And EB said it best. And speaking of which, of EB, I met his mom on the sidelines. I didn't post a
Oh,
picture of her.
awesome.
Yeah, I didn't post a picture of her, but I met his mom, and she was a nice lady, and we chopped it up for a minute. And something that he said, it resonates with me, and I think that I will always use this saying that he said: "We did enough to entertain some people, but we didn't win," and that stuck with me. And anytime we lose in that fashion, I'm going to say that.
I mean, it definitely was an entertaining game. And, you picked them to win this past week on our preview pod. And, I picked them to lose just because I didn't know if we'd be able to hang with their wide receivers. And we gave up almost 500 yards of offense. Regardless of how you think about the past 4 hours of it, it was entertaining. And we're going back and forth on that game. And I'm sure in those stands, we shocked their fans. I mean, I'm sure
Oh,
those 12s were, just kind of, creaking in their boots, if you will, once B Rob got that first touchdown and we got that opening drive TD and Sam like escaped that blitz and just hit him out in that flat. And next thing you know, B's gone. So, I mean, there were definitely some back and forth in that game. That was great to see. And the future's bright for the offense. It's just that defense, man, not so entertaining, at least from my standpoint.
no, man, I feel like Smokey from Friday. We ain't never got two things to go together. Ham, no burger. Offense, no defense. Damn. That's how I feel, man. And I don't know what is going on with these guys, man. Well, I will say Percy Butler, he whiffed on a tackle, 2 tackles he whiffed on. I
Yeah.
mean, and I was just like, yo, what's the deal? Um, that kind of upset me. And you know me, man, I don't really get upset too much. I mean, these games to me, and I try to convey this to everybody else. We've been through so many losing seasons to where this shouldn't be something new to you. Yeah, it stings because it was such a close game, but at the same time, going home and wanting to smash your TV or whatever have you, we've been here before. You know, just you deal with it, and I roll with the punches, and I think that everybody else should be able to do that as well. Although I know that everyone else doesn't feel the way that I feel. But it comes down to Ted, man. I once again, I never want to see anybody get fired, but I feel as though JDR has lost the locker room. I really
I
do,
agree
and
with
I
you. Yeah.
I feel as though I'm not gonna say they don't want to play for him, but something just isn't there. We aren't getting the same motivation that we had last year. Something is missing.
I mean,
And I
there's a lot missing. And I think part of that is last year it was different competition we were going up against. It was different caliber of teams we were going up against. But right now, we're sucking versus bad teams. And I'm not saying that the Seahawks are a bad team. We talked about it before. They're an average team. We held them to 4-14 on third down, right? 4 for 14 on third down, but they still put up 489 yards of offense. That shouldn't be possible, but we gave up a bunch of explosive plays. There was that 64-yard run by that one kid. I mean, it was ridiculous. And the big plays have always been an issue here, but how many times are we going to see David Mayo covering a wide receiver and a guy going across his body? I mean, the guy can't cover anyone, especially Tyler Lockett going out in the flat. And it was just frustrating. You would think Del Rio would scheme accordingly, but I feel that he's just too stubborn and doesn't want to make any changes. And nothing has changed. Our defense right now is still atrocious. If your offense puts up 26 points, you should win that game.
Should.
If your offense ties the game up with, and I'm going back and looking at my notes, with 52 seconds left, you should hopefully play for overtime at that point. And we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but the defense didn't do us any favors. But Sam, I can't believe it, man. He had another 300-yard passing game. I mean, he is leading the NFL in passing yards right now. If I would have told you that in week 11 going into, Sam would lead the league in passing, what would you say our record would be?
If he was leading the league, you're speaking of last year.
No, if I were to tell you at the beginning of the season, hey, Rally.
Oh, beginning of the season,
week
okay.
11.
Okay.
And Sam Howell is going to be leading the NFL, beating all of the quarterbacks in passing yards. What do you think our record's going to be?
I'd say, man, we would probably be 7-3.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think 7-3 is a fair estimate because we were all under the belief that Sam Howell was a gigantic question mark heading into the season. No one knew what we had with him. Yes, he beat the Cowboys, but he only threw the ball 19 times. And if you said you knew, then either you're a gigantic North Carolina fan and you watched him in college, or you're just lying. And I knew that Sam could make all the throws just based upon going to training camp and being there. But I was suspect about Bieniemy, first-time play caller coming in, and this offensive line. Well, the offensive line was horrible this past Sunday. I mean, I'm looking at the Pro Football Focus grades, looking here at pass blocking, and from a pass block perspective, taking a look at this, Sam Cosmi got a 27.7, right? That's your right guard. Tyler Larson, your center, got a 17.2 in pass blocking, right? Chris Paul, a 6.9 in pass blocking, in true passing sets, a 6.9. But yet Sam still put up over 300 yards. And it's because Sam is now finally feeling that pressure and understanding where it's coming from. There were a couple of times, and like we said at the beginning of the show, that first pass to B-Rob, when he had that touchdown, Sam got blitzed off his, I think it was his right side.
The right side.
The ball, and then ran left towards the flat and saw B-Rob running down it and hit him, no problem. So, I mean, Sam's feeling that pressure and he's able to make adjustments, and he's not using his legs a ton, except there was that one play where, I mean, I'm just sitting here having flashbacks of Chris Cooley fighting for a first down. And you know which one I'm talking about. Sam's running around. It was a zone read. He kept the ball for a change, which he very rarely does, but he got the first down. He had a chance to slide. He just didn't do it. And he got that fumble. And you hate to see that because it was a nice 15-yard run, but then Sam coughed the ball up. And he said it himself, the defenders were holding him up and they weren't letting him go down. And you would have hoped that the refs would blow the whistle, but he wasn't being held up for that long a time where he was impeded. It's just, these are some of the growing pains with a young quarterback. You think, watching Russell Wilson last night on the Monday night game, he gets that first down, he slides, he goes down. He's not taking the unnecessary hits. And Sam was trying to fight for it. And it reminded me of the week prior on that 3rd and 23 where he's fighting for those extra yards, and it was great. And he needed every single bit of that fight, but he got the first down by 3 or 4 yards. Thinking, man, go down. What are you doing? And next thing you know, that he just coughs that ball up.
Well, I also think, Ted, that it seemed as though he surprised himself in getting it. And then once he got it, maybe he thought that the whistle was going to blow as well until it didn't, and then the ball gets ripped out. But I agree with you. Hey, man, get what you can and just go down. Slide, that is. Don't go head forward like Heineke did and lost the Green Bay game. Well, I'm going to say he lost the Green Bay game for us, but that was a contributing factor back in 2022. But yeah, I tell you, the only bad thing that didn't happen with me Sunday was I didn't call for B-Rob to be the first scorer, but I did call him to be a anytime touchdown scorer. So imagine if I would have picked him to be the scorer for the first touchdown, I would have won double my money. But I didn't do that. But I did win money on him scoring an anytime touchdown. So right out the gate, I was happy about that. And man, Seattle has a weird. They don't have gaming out there. They have casinos, so they make you go into the casino. You can't.
Oh, to place your bets. You can't place them ahead of time.
No, you can't place your bets ahead of time.
Gotcha. Yeah. Where's the casino out there?
Well, apparently there was a couple of them. I don't know. But what I had to do was I had to call back and have a buddy of mine put the bet in for me, because when I left, they didn't have anytime touchdown score props up yet. So that was really jacked up. Yeah.
Yeah, because what I typically do is when I'm at the airport, because I live in D.C., so I can't put the bets in when I'm sitting in DC. So I'll typically do it at the airport. And when I put my bet in on, I want to say it was Wednesday or Thursday, I was still trying to get it at 6.5 points spread wise, but they didn't have any anytime prop bets for players yet. So that kind of frustrated me, but I was able to get the point spread. So I took the Commanders plus the points thinking that they would cover, which was great. But I also had a nice little parlay in, and I just missed it because B-Rob didn't get too many rushing yards after the fact. But yeah, it looks like there's a bunch of casinos far off, not too close to the actual airport or stadium or anything else out there. So, oh, well, I mean, we might have to get a betting sponsor, maybe talk to Toothpick and see how we can hook us up with one of those guys. But the offense, the only thing that frustrated me was the lack of rushing production. And I understand Seattle definitely clamped down on the guys rushing, but it was a little frustrating to see, like, the first 21 plays that we called offensively, 17 of them were throws. And we talk about Bieniemy's script. And was he just sticking to that script, or was this the game plan the entire time? Or was there an issue with us not being able to really get anywhere on the ground and Bieniemy calling those run plays? Well, this is what Rivera had to say about it.
Your running backs had big game as receivers. The run-pass balance was a bit out of whack. Again, was that just sort of the way the game evolved, or did you guys just think it was better to attack them through the air?
Well, I think it evolved a little bit that way, but, we were having success attacking them through the air. And, again, as I said, later on in the game, we found a couple things that we liked, and we stuck to it, and it put us right back in the game.
So we had 14 carries on offense. 2 of those were Sam. One, I want to say, was a scramble that I wouldn't really count as a design run. So we really weren't getting anywhere on the ground. And from a run blocking perspective, Sam Cosmi, they gave him a 74. Let's see here. We've got Leno got a 54. Larson got a 47. Wiley got a 42, and Chris Paul got a 37. So, I mean, our run blocking was atrocious at that point. They really didn't get a chance to get anywhere. And I'm kind of shocked considering how well we did against the Eagles running the ball and a couple of the other teams in the past. And Seattle isn't known for their run defense compared to some of the other teams that we played. But it was good to see them get the guys involved in the passing game. but I was a little surprised that we did so poor on the ground. I mean, were you seeing something out there in person? Because I haven't had a chance to look at the all 22 versus what we saw on TV back home.
I same. I really haven't had time to look at anything. But it did shock me, and I was telling people next to me, I said, "Man, I'm really surprised that we have not gone back to the run, and it's almost like we gave up on them running the ball." But then the second half, we were making some headway running the ball. So it's just really weird, and I get it. EB, he throws to open the run versus most people run to throw open to throw. So I mean, I get it. It's hard to fathom, but that's just how it is. So like you, I'll have to look to see what was going on, but I really didn't see them. I really didn't see them stopping us like that. Maybe the guys just weren't holding their blocks or something. But I just felt they went away from the run too quick because we weren't
Yeah.
down. I mean, we stayed tied for the most part. I mean, and at one point in time we were even up. So it's just kind of one of those things where somebody's got to walk behind him and pull his coattail and say, "Run the ball."
Yeah. And I was proud of the team because you really didn't see any false start penalties. You didn't see any stupid stuff from an
Mm-mm.
offensive perspective. I mean, crowd noise. I've been to Seattle a couple times for games, but for our listeners, I mean, can you tell them how loud it was, or did we give them a reason not to cheer, considering how close the game was?
No, I would say that when I was there in 2017, I wasn't impressed with the crowd noise. However, this trip, I was very impressed with the crowd noise. And I was going to see if Sam had said anything about the crowd noise because, if I'm not mistaken, he said that Virginia Tech was the loudest stadium he ever played in. So I'm wondering how he compared that with this past Sunday because they got loud. I mean, we shut them down, but then they got loud, and I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. But here's the other thing, Ted. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but to a degree, we got loud and caused them to have about two false starts.
Yeah, they had two false starts that I saw. And I mean, I could definitely see the Commanders fans on the TV feed. It was a beautiful sight, man. Just seeing the burgundy and gold there, regardless, Commanders, WFT, or Redskins, just to see you guys out there. I saw you standing next to a couple of fans in the end zone. And
Did
then there
you?
was, yeah, oh, yeah, you were on the feed a couple of times. I saw you standing there. There was a guy that had like a white jersey beside you and another guy beside him. And I think some of the fans that don't know you as well might have thought that you were in the other end zone because there was a guy that had a Washington Commanders flag in the other end zone that's not field level. So it's up higher up. And I think some people might have thought that that was you on your end. It's funny because you can't miss your flag or the chain. And I'm looking forward to every game, trying to see what's going on. But there was burgundy and gold throughout those stands, man. And it was beautiful to see. And the fact that, just like EB said, it was entertaining. You guys had something to look forward to and something to watch and something to enjoy, even though, and I'm not one to blame the refs, but there were some BS calls this game. First one being getting rid of Emmanuel Forbes on that hit. Have you had a chance to actually see the replay of it yet?
No, and at the stadium so obviously when it happened, you could tell that it was kind of a weird hit, helmet to helmet hit. Okay, so you're like, all right, that's fine. But then when they actually slowed it down, and where you can actually dissect it, you're like, ooh, okay, maybe that wasn't good. But as far as ejecting him is concerned, I thought that was a little egregious. But because I've seen worse, and I haven't seen. I don't know the last NFL player I've seen get ejected. I've seen college players get ejected, but an NFL player, no. Now, the guy who's sitting next to me, he was a season ticket holder for like 50 years. He was telling me he had the same seats for like 50 years or something to that effect. Elton John is who he looked like to me. He was saying that receiver had been hit last week in the head a couple times, and so he felt that was their payback for not calling some of the calls last week for him.
That's BS, though, man. It's a completely different player, different play. And the last person that got ejected, I remember, was that guy from the Broncos that hit Logan Thomas. Was it Kareem Jackson? He got ejected that game when Logan held on to that ball in the end zone, and don't know how the hell he did it. But I think it was utter crap that they ejected Forbes. This is actually what Forbes had to say about it. This is from JP Finley's Twitter, talking about the ejection.
Scrum drill, seeing the ball in the air, I'm going to break it up.
And I guess, did the referee explain to you, or what was your conversation like?
No, they just told me I was ejected from the game. Didn't know why, anything like that.
Were you pretty shocked that was an ejection?
Yes, I was in shock that it was an ejection. It wasn't like I was trying to kill him play. It was just a play. I was trying to make a play on the ball.
Did you see a replay of it at all?
I did once I got in the locker room.
What did you think? Could you have done anything different, I guess?
Yeah, that's the only way I could have hit him to try to dislodge the ball, and I don't think it was a terrible hit.
So it's frustrating because it's a bang-bang play. The other part that drives you crazy is Lockett already dropped the ball. So if you slow it down, I mean, obviously it's going to look bad, but in real time, I don't feel the Emmanuel was trying to hurt the kid. He was trying to do anything just malicious at all. He's not a headhunter. I mean, you sneeze, the kid will fall over. And Nikki Javala from the Washington Post talked to the head of officiating, Walt Anderson, on the ejection of Forbes, and this is what it was said. Question, on the Emmanuel Forbes unnecessary roughness penalty, was that called clearly for the helmet-to-helmet hit? Anderson, yes, the foul on the field was for the forcible contact on a defensive player, which was the receiver. Question, okay, and what determined the ejection? I know they said at the game here that upon further review, they decided it was grounds for ejection. Anderson, right, yes, Rule 19 allows New York, whenever a flag is thrown for unnecessary roughness on the field, it allows us to take a further look. What we're looking to try to avoid is helmet-to-helmet contact. It was certainly not a bang-bang type play where you have both the defender and the receiver just playing for the ball. We want players to stay away from the helmet-to-helmet contact. We're also looking at, is the defender making the attempt to play the ball, or is he making no attempt to separate the ball from the player? In terms of going straight for the head, and in this case, it was the latter where he just went straight to the head, and that's why it rose to the level of disqualification. Got it. Just to clarify, you said that this was done from assistance from New York, and the ref said yes. So once again, New York comes in and screws us. I hate the call. I'm not saying that because I'm a Washington fan and we do a Commanders podcast. I just don't know how many times we've seen Logan Thomas get hit up high in the head, and only one time has a guy been ejected for it. And Forbes did not mean anything by this hit. It's not like he's got a history of it. Like, I'm going to the Caps game later on tonight. We're playing the Golden Knights. Tom Wilson has a history of hitting people and knocking the crap out of them. So he's built that brand. So if he hits somebody, sometimes a suspension comes. Forbes, the kid's a rookie. You don't have to worry about that with him. At least you shouldn't have to worry about that with him. And I feel the NFL just made an example out of him for whatever reason. I mean, I hear the guy in the stands telling you it's retaliation or a makeup for weeks prior, but I don't know, man. That's just some BS to me.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where you're there and you just say, okay. I mean, I'm not going to argue with someone. I don't know what happened last week. I'm not a fan of Seattle, but obviously he was, and so he had more knowledge in his opinion. So I just went with it. Hate to see it for him, but I'm looking forward to seeing him have a bounce back week this week. And, at the end of the day, it's all a learning experience. And I think that I'm hoping that what it doesn't do is it doesn't hinder him to the point where he's afraid to put his head back in there again. You know what I mean? To where, because it's like when AJ Brown burned him a couple times, I think that he may have been a little gun shy. And he needed that week off, and I'm hoping that it doesn't take that to get him back into the grind of things.
Yeah, I hope you're right, because I mean he had a heck of a game the week prior, and granted, the Patriots are bad. I mean they're really bad. I don't know if you probably didn't watch the game on Sunday because it was the early game. out overseas. So that would have been what, 3 a.m. for you? Who knows what time at that point? But the Patriots are just garbage. But Forbes put up his best game of the year. He got a 91 grade. The team was hyping it up, and he didn't get a chance to try and deliver back-to-back good games. And Danny Johnson came in. He did admirably for, being put on short notice. And I'm not saying that we lost the game because of Danny. We lost the game because of Emmanuel, but you definitely have to change your game plan up. You got guys coming in that weren't part of the defensive game plan at that point. And I don't want to say showed a ton, but the Seattle receivers, they ate us up. I mean, DK, it was 7 for 98. Lockett, 8 for 92. Jackson Smith and Jigba, he had 4 for 53. You had 369 yards in the air overall for them. And it was just kind of frustrating to see because I feel like played with our food to a little bit. Like we were stopping them on 3rd down, but we kept letting them get so far down the field that they could just make field goals. And that just kept them in the game. I mean, they had 5 field goals from their kicker? I mean, it was just, 5 for 5. I mean, Myers was 5 for 5 in that game. It was just frustrating to see because let's not let them move so far down because all they got to do is get in field goal range. And then speaking of which, the end of the game, I mean, Benjamin St. Juice, I don't know what he's thinking or what was going on, but he got torched. And that last drive was definitely on him. And the one prior to that where Lockett tied the game up. I mean, I do think it was a BS 4th and 5 pass interference penalty. Some people are saying, no, BSJ got there early. I'm saying, no, he got there at the same time. And this is actually what Rivera had to say about that call.
For Benjamin St. Juice in particular, I know he had 2 penalties on that. I think it was the second to last drive there. Do you say anything to him after that? Is that it, or are you just kind of let him work through that?
Well, you let him work through it for the most part. You just tell him just continue to compete. I mean, it's tough because for as much, for the penalty they called on him, to sit there and look at as much contact as being allowed, you almost wonder, why would that be called at that time? I mean, compared to some of them that weren't. I've got about 3 or 4 that I'm going to send in and ask if I can get explanations on these as to why they weren't called or why they were called, just so I can see if where the consistency is. And right now, there's not a lot of consistency in the calls that are being made, or not made for that matter.
What could he have done? That aside, they called the penalty. So what could he have done better to lessen the chance of a penalty being called in that situation?
Well, I think for the most part is just the fact that there was contact. The thing I struggle with is if you look at it, you'll see that the receiver puts his hand on him just as much, and again, it's as you sit there and you talk about, is he getting an edge? At what point is the contact leading to an individual having an advantage over the other? That was one of the criteria that when I was on the coaches committee that we talked about. That needs to be one of the criteria, so whether you have a penalty or not. For as much contact's being allowed and hand fighting that's being allowed, if a guy's gaining a true advantage, well, that ball was thrown high and away, and I'm not sure if anybody had an advantage right there when that ball was thrown.
Could you see that penalty when it happened, the 4th and 5, that they called that PI?
It didn't look like it to me, being from my vantage point, and I was cheering. I was like, yeah, no, there's a penalty. What the hell? I mean, it didn't look like it. So, but once again, being 45 yards away or whatever have you, 50 yards away, seeing it live, it didn't look like it. But that ref is standing right there, so I have to give it to him or her, what they called. I didn't like it. I still don't like it. But the game shouldn't come down to one play. It really shouldn't. And so we had opportunities that we squandered. Like we'd hurry up and went 3 and out. That killed us too. I mean, there's so many things that we could look at that we could do better. And I hate for the ref to call a game, but it's not good, bro. We got to do better on so many other levels. I really do. And so what do we say about the offense? I'm going to say it again this week. We've got pieces to this daggone puzzle, and we changed the pieces of the puzzle on offense, and look what we're getting. Jack may have to change the pieces of the puzzle for a week on defense to maybe wake the guys up. You hate to do that to some people who are getting paid a lot of money, but you may have to do that, man.
What pieces are you thinking? I mean, you talking secondary, you talking linebacker? Like, what are you thinking?
I'm saying whoever isn't putting down, okay, whoever isn't on film doing what they feel needs to be done, then switch them out. I'm not going to call a person out, but I'll just say that the film don't lie. So because of that, you sat Gates down. So put somebody else in who wants to play, or who's going to do what you ask them to do, or make a play. Not who wants to play, but who will make a play. And we just aren't getting that done for some reason. So we change the pieces of the puzzle until you get it right. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you. I agree with you. I also am going to rebut and say the problem is the makeup of this roster. Linebacker depth has been an issue with this team since Rivera took over. So you've got Cody Barton, who's hurt, and then you've got Jamin Davis. We only really run 2 linebackers. Well, okay, if Cody's hurt, then on your depth chart, because of how they've constructed it, you've got David Mayo coming in. There's not much else you can do. Khaleke Hudson is not a Mike linebacker. He can only play outside. So then do you move Jamin back to middle? And then after Mayo, you've got DeJohn Harris or Jabril Cox. So, and I'm not disagreeing, let's put someone else in, because unfortunately, the part that really sucks with losing this game, we have a 6% chance of making the playoffs. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because there are fans that are listening to this right now thinking we still have a shot to make the playoffs. But at a certain point, it's about evaluation of what you have on this roster. So the new GM that takes over can see where you're deficient and where you need some help. And you got to fill those gaps. Or maybe this guy, given the right time, can actually step up. Andre Jones Jr. getting in and coming in and making an impact in the game now that Chase and Montez are gone. What's going to happen there? Because you have a bunch of free agents at defensive end. So I'm right there with you. I just feel that also in the secondary, okay, Forbes goes out. You've got Danny Johnson. You've got Christian Holmes. We saw what he did last year. And you've got Tariq Castro-Fields. It's just the roster makeup of this team isn't great. But yet you sat Gates because you had a center in Tyler Larson who was 7-2-1, now 7-3 when he started. So you had a good backup. I don't think that they have good backups in the defensive spots where we would love to see new guys come in, realistically.
I hear you. I think what I'm saying is for the guys that aren't producing, that are your starters, that first series, let the backups come in and make those guys want to get hungry. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you got to do something with these guys. And I also agree with what you said earlier. I think Del Rio has lost this defense. And I feel that guys are playing selfish. You have 52 seconds left in the game. All Seattle needs to do is drive down and get a field goal to win. And actually, before I get to that, a bunch of reporters were asking Rivera if he should have gone for 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand what going for 2 gets you in the end. I mean, to me, you tie the game up and you hold them off and you play for OT. Or if you go for 2 there with 52 seconds left, you miss it, game over.
Game's over.
Yeah, why go for 2 at that point? Because even if you make 2, they can still drive down the field with 52 seconds and get the field goal that they got anyway. And this was actually what Ron had to say about going for 2.
Did you consider going for 2 at the end?
In talking and trying to get a feel for it, the biggest thing that you get concerned with is how much time was left. Because again, when they don't have consequences, now the opportunity to move the ball down comes into play. You know what I'm saying? Because they had 2 timeouts left. So again, it was one of those things that I liked our chances going into overtime. I liked the way that we moved the ball. You know, we found a couple of things that we felt we could exploit, and we did. You know, we did it twice the last couple of drives. So just felt good going into overtime.
It's a moot point because we didn't go for 2, and they drove down the field anyway and got the field goal. But I agree. I think a bunch of the analytics said go for 2 there, but I agree with Ron and his assessment of not doing it at that point because our offense was moving the ball. I mean, that touchdown that Sam had to Diami, when you get a chance to look at that thing, dude, he had a perfect pocket, had a bunch of time, and then just dropped it in right over 2 receivers. I mean, it was just a perfect touch on that ball right there. And I believe that if given the opportunity, we went to overtime, the defense would have got stingy again and held them potentially to a field goal and not a touchdown. And then we have a chance to go down the field, or maybe we drive and score first with a touchdown and game over. Who cares? Who knows? But it was just frustrating to see the defense play so soft when they needed to play up front and physical. And like they were too scared to get burned over top. I mean, St. Juice just got picked on that last drive. And he is supposed to be our best corner. And everyone said, don't let Emmanuel Forbes get put on DK. Well, we didn't have to worry about that. And you want your best corner, which is BSJ, to be on him. He got targeted 6 times when BSJ was on him, and he had 4 catches. And 2 of those were the end of the game.
I was going to say that I would have thought that we would have been playing a lot tighter, but when you're looking on the field and then you glance up at the big screen and you see the defensive backs pretty much 6-7 yards away from the receiver, it's like, well, damn, all they got to do is do a slant, and pretty much that's what they did.
Yeah, multiple times on that last drive.
Yeah, you're like, wait a minute, what are you doing here? So you wonder about the play calling, you wonder about the position that you're putting your players in to succeed, and I don't feel that they put the players in a position to succeed. You know, the whole thing about that tight man is that allows your defensive lineman to be able to put some pressure on the guy, so he doesn't have that clear open window, because there was no pressure, none. Gino could sit back and throw a slant, but gee, at least bump him something. Don't give him a free release. So, like you said, it felt like we didn't play to win or play to stop them. We played to slow them down, and you'll never win that way. At some point in time, you got to do something different.
You do. You really do. And this is actually what Ron had to say when he was questioned about the defense giving up 500 yards.
And then with yesterday's performance and looking back at the defense especially, did you feel that was more execution? Were there different calls or things that should have been done? And what was your instinct there?
Well, the biggest thing more than anything else, and I kind of felt it yesterday and kind of got a chance to look at it and look at some of the numbers, and you know, we got to be better on first and second down situations. We put ourselves in a couple of really good third down situations, and we were able to convert, and we held them 4 for 14. But yeah, there were some first and second down things that we got to get better at, and you know, it's collectively we have to be better overall. You know, we're playing a number of different guys now, you know, especially after last week, and there's some cohesion that has to come. You know, guys have got to come together and work together, and so it's a little bit of that more than is anything else. But again, it's collective. We all have to be better.
Ron's obviously not telling us much there, but the defense is just, they're giving up way too many yards, way too many points. I mean, earlier on, I think you had said you wanted us to score 27 points a game and we'd be fine. And well, you're getting your wish, man. I just need to wish next time that I want the defense to stop people from scoring 27 points a game. Because it's frustrating to see, because we're wasting just this offensive performance that we're not used to seeing here after being stuck with Captain Checkdown, with Alex Smith, for a couple of years and just bad quarterback play. We're finally getting decent to good quarterback play, and our defense is just atrocious. And I don't see a way to fix it at all. And yeah, we've got Danny DeVito coming to town with the Giants this week, but other than that, we realistically have to, we've got what, 7 games left? You got to go 5-2 in the last 7 games if you want to think about actually being in playoff contention. And you lose to an NFC team with the Seahawks that you're fighting for that wild card spot for. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, man. I don't think it is.
Well, that's what miracles are all about, brother. I mean, somebody's going to wake up, and maybe at this juncture, the light bulb may come on for the defense and say, you know, we're still in it, and we need to make a run. You know, as Doc Walker always said, it becomes a manhood issue, and I don't want anybody trying to take my manhood. I really don't. So I'm gonna do everything in my power, and I think that these guys need to do the exact same thing. I don't think that they're. I think that they're trying, but it's almost like that. It seems as though the effort isn't where it was last year. And I know things are different, and you can't compare last year to this year, but that's all you have to go off of.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad comparison. You've got pretty much the same team that was there. Granted, we traded away Chase and Tez now, so you take them out the equation. But before, when they were here, the only difference really was Emmanuel Forbes. You know, okay, you lost Cole Holcomb, and you got Cody Barton in there. Don't tell me Cole Holcomb made us a top 5 defense. I'm not going to buy that at all. So from a secondary perspective, okay, you lost Defo because he got hurt, but even when he was in there, he was there for the Bears game. We got our ass kicked. You know, just this defense is not where it needs to be or where anybody thought it would be this time of year. And we're just giving up way too many yards. And I want to say there was a stupid stat that I heard on the radio. I think 8 out of the 10 games that we played, we've given up over 300 yards of offense. And the only 2 that did not happen was, I want to say, the Patriots game and another game with a quarterback that came in the week of. I want to say the Cardinals game. That was it. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous what we've been giving up just from a defensive perspective, yards-wise.
Bro, somebody's got to put some fire under their butts, as my coach used to tell me.
Do you think firing anybody's going to help? Just not a fire, firing. Yeah.
I said put some fire on somebody's butt. Do I feel that firing is going to help? I think that, and as I said, I never want to see anybody get fired. I feel as though whatever it's going to take to get the message across, and sometimes that's what it takes. I look at, I mean, granted, they're an S show as well, but the Raiders, you know, they fired their head coach and their interim head coach. They've won 2 games, albeit to bad teams, to bad teams, but they still won 2 games. So I think that it could, if it's a positive change, I say yes. If it's going to take away, then of course I say no. But I honestly feel as though at this juncture, doing something differently would spark the guys.
I mean, it's week 11, and we're recording this. It's Tuesday the 14th at 4 o'clock. I mean, you've already had your first head coach fired with the Raiders, so Antonio Pierce has taken over. The Bills just fired their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. So it's that time of year now where coaches that aren't doing what they're supposed to do, coordinators, they're getting let go. Obviously, this Washington defense is not doing what we thought it was supposed to do, or anyone thought it was going to do this year. So does getting rid of JDR really help? I don't know how it can hurt at this point, other than the fact that I think the only person that would call plays would be Rivera, and he hasn't called plays from a defensive perspective in a very long time. But you didn't get a chance to watch the TV. All they kept showing was Pete Carroll running up and down the sideline, just going crazy and just waving his arms back and forth like he's one of those things outside of a used car lot. And then you just see Rivera there with his arms crossed, doing the classic Rivera pose. Nothing. Well, maybe firing JDR will give Ron something to do instead of crossing his arms and get some guys to say, oh, hey. But if anything, I almost think this fan base wants heads to roll regardless because they want some accountability for how bad it's getting. And even if it's not going to improve anything.
So if by chance JDR got fired, and not Ron, who would it be, like Kerrigan or somebody, a position coach to come in and be the head play caller for defense besides Ron?
An offensive coach is the only one that's actually called defensive plays before. So they're not going to take him from being that offensive coach and all of a sudden make him the DC. Then, okay, from a defense perspective, you've got Scanina, who's head of the defensive line. He's never called plays before. So you've got, Kerrigan. I'm sorry, they're not going to put him up there and make him all of a sudden a defense coordinator. You've got Steve Russ. You don't have anybody realistically that can call plays. You had a guy last year, that defensive backs coach that we let go and we let walk. But other than that, there really isn't anybody. So I think it would defer back to Rivera. And I can't remember what coach it was. There was an offensive coach that recently let go of somebody, one of his coordinators. And I think now that they're going to actually start calling plays. So it's not unheard of for the head coach to take over coordinator duties if that's what they're supposed to be good at. And Rivera is a defensive-minded coach, so he could technically do it, but is it really going to bring any positive change? I don't think so.
I think at this point, like you said, Ted, it would be a fan favorite to release someone. But now that you mention it that way, see, I didn't know. But once you break it down that way, I think the fans need to slow it down a little bit and realize that, okay, you just jumped from the frying pan into the fire. But I'm sure they'll say, well, how could it get any worse? Well, it could. And other than tanking these last, 7 games, that's what you'd be doing at this point. When you put it the way that you just put it, and I never looked at it that way, you aren't going to put Kerrigan. You aren't going to put anybody else in it. You definitely aren't going to ask Ron to call plays. It ain't going to happen. So we're going to ride this ride. And that's probably why ownership hasn't made a move as of yet, because they see the same thing that you just said. And they get paid millions of bucks. They understand that there's an issue, but they're going to ride it out. I see them riding it out once you put it the way that you put it.
And I was right. It was Juan Castillo was the former defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles one season. It went horribly wrong that season. It was the 2011-2012 season. He was the Eagles defensive coordinator. So it did not go well for him. He got let go after that, and he's our run game coordinator now. So can EB coordinate the run game? I don't know. Considering what our run game looks like right now, maybe Castillo's not doing his job there either. Maybe move him to the defensive side. But realistically, just from that perspective, I don't think it's going to happen, even though I'm all for just getting rid of the dead weight now anyway. It was Mitch Tischler on the Beltway Football Pod saying, actually, the best thing on Sunday that could have happened. And his reasoning was Sam Howell did well. He put another notch on his belt to the new GM that takes over, that he is QB1 and the QB of the future here. The Commanders lost, so it doesn't hurt your draft status. And Rivera didn't win. So you don't have to worry about potentially having the argument, is he going to stick around? So if you look at it from that perspective, yeah, Sunday went well. From my perspective, I never want to lose because of draft status or anything like that. Tanking, to me, is loser talk. We pay good money to watch this team, And yes, I don't pick us to win every week just because I don't think we're going to win every week, but do I want them to? Hell yeah. Just same way you do, and a majority of our listeners do. It still sucks, though, knowing what's going to happen. And I just want to see Rivera gone because I want to know, can EB do it? Can, just like Sam is giving tape to the new GM, I need Bieniemy to provide tape to the new GM that he can be the head man in charge. So 6% chance of making the playoffs. I don't know if they're waiting until after the Cowboys game. That's what a lot of people are hypothesizing, that maybe after Dallas, because we have that mini bye week, then Rivera will be gone and things will change. Or maybe he just lasts the entire season and we're stuck in this, wait and see mode until Black Monday.
I see Black Monday. I really do. Unless they know something that we don't know, which is it's possible. I mean, we don't know everything, but we can speculate. And when you put it the way that you put it, when it comes down to brass tacks, who are you going to trust to call the plays? And I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think it was JP Finley talking on his show today. Josh Harris has not fired a coach for, I want to say, his basketball franchise prior to his contract, prior to the season being over. So if that's anything to hang your hat on, it's just, I hope that when it's all said and done, that Bieniemy does get a fair shot to potentially stay here as head coach because of how good he is with Sam. And because it means that Sam will most likely be our QB next year and we don't have to draft another quarterback. Because the part that kills me is seeing Sam have all these stats that are so great to see that we haven't seen since Kirk Cousins. None of it means a damn thing until we know what the new GM wants to do. Because if that new guy says, you know what, Sam's leading the league and passing this and that, but he's not doing these 5 other things I want, then it's all for nothing at this point. We got to start from scratch. At least I feel that if EB gets that head coaching job, then we're not starting from square one 100%. We're starting from, square 5 out of 10, if you will, because we know what a quarterback can do.
Yeah, and what you don't want to happen is you don't want to have that whole learning curve all over again for a quarterback. I mean, this would be his third system if they kept him with the new GM, or even if you brought a rookie in, a rookie in, he's got to learn what that quarterback coach wants him to do as well. We knew that this would be some shaped form of a rebuilding year, and we're getting it. I mean, we really are seeing it. It's developing right in front of our eyes. I mean, it really is. But we know we aren't patient. We just aren't. we want it to work right now, and so I'm afraid that if things change, we might be back into the same scenario for us trying
things
to.
Are going to change. I mean, I don't see
what I mean.
Changes.
What I mean by that is, you bring in hypothetically a rookie quarterback. You get rid of Sam. That means that now whoever you bring in has got to learn that guy's system and potentially be right back where we are, is what I'm saying. Versus it took Sam how many weeks to really finally get this? That's all I'm saying. You bring a rookie in, it's going to take him that many weeks to finally get to where Sam was, and we're repeating the same thing all over again. And basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, Sam's still under contract. They're not going to get rid of him. Not going to cut him. Maybe they could trade him for another asset come draft time if whoever takes over doesn't want him here, and we get something for him. Because it comes down to, if we take you're going to take a quarterback with your first pick, and that's the part that just really pains me. Because yes, it's definitely a rebuilding year. We don't know what the future holds, but we do know that Sam can make all the throws. We have seen him do it repeatedly. He is learning. He's feeling that pressure. I went over the offensive blocking numbers. He did not have good blocking this week. He made a lot of those throws just scrambling, running for his life, and still didn't throw an interception. He only gave up 3 sacks. And I want to say maybe one of those was on him after watching it, but it's just going to hurt me more if they move on from him because we have to start all over again.
Yeah.
And that's a story for, another pod in the off season. But I feel if Rivera does get canned, then maybe there's a better likelihood that EB does take over and Sam does stick around. And we have 90 million in cap space. We can get a guard. We can get a center. We can get some guys that can block. And we get a real linebacker that can actually do. I mean, how old is Bobby Wagner? That guy has been in the league for how long? And I feel that he was all over the damn field on us. I mean, how can you tell me that we can't find someone like him to actually come in and do something from a linebacker perspective? It's just, I'm banging my head against the wall when it comes to this defense, man.
Well, one of the things that I'm hoping if a new GM comes in or a new coach comes in, that you draft a guy for the position that you want him to play and not another position. I mean, I get it. You want versatility, but at the same time, if you bring a guy in for a guard, let the guy be good at playing guard. My gosh. And not
this position flex stuff is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice if we could actually get a guy that's really, really good at one thing and maybe okay at the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's, well, he can play center, guard, and tackle if need be. Well, I'm looking at the numbers. No, he can't. You move Cosme in to guard. Sorry, Cosme hasn't had the best year at guard. So now what's your excuse? Just looking at Cosme's numbers this entire year from a blocking perspective, and he was a high pick. I mean, his run blocking, he's averaging a 69. He had a 47 1 week against Atlanta. I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. You had a good offensive line here. You got rid of all of it. Trent's in San Fran partying up with Chase. Sheriff is having a good old time in Jacksonville now. You got, who's the other guy? Morgan Moses up in Baltimore. It's just, they dismantled the entire thing. And you've got all these journeymen, and then you really need to retool that thing. But wrapping this up, it is Tuesday. They've already had their day off. But if it was you, who doesn't get a day off? Who has to sit there? Who has to pull a Coach Gibbs and sleep there and hear the trash truck come in, Ashburn, and pick everything up so they stay and watch extra film?
I'm going to say Percy Butler.
Yeah. Percy had a bad game. He definitely did not do too well this week. It's frustrating because the young kids got some hope, but he missed a couple of tackles.
Yeah.
And it's just really big one on that 64-yard touchdown.
Huge.
I mean, he whiffed, just complete like grabbing air.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, it's two people. One, BSJ. We already harped about it. I mean, I do think that 4th and 5 PI call was a bunch of crap, but he got targeted against Metcalf and he gave up 4 catches out of 6 in just key moments of that game. You cannot give that inside contain. You have to use your leverage there. You're giving up slants all day long, and they just nickel and dime their way down that field in a couple of plays and got enough for that field goal. And it was just so frustrating. And at least I'm not going to speak for anybody else. I did not feel that the defense was going to stop him. 52 seconds left. That's sad. Because we weren't getting a pass rush, so you have to rely on a secondary. And I talked to my don't sleep energy players and it had to be Duran and it had to be John. I needed those two to get pressure up front, and they didn't get the pressure that I was hoping for. So next thing you know, our secondary not doing what they need to do, just they're getting eaten up. So for me, it's BSJ. And second person, I'm tired of these Cheeseman snaps, man. By my count, going back and looking at it, from a high snap perspective, he had 4 high snaps. And I tried to go back and see if that's why we missed the extra point on the first touchdown, on B-Rob's touchdown. I couldn't really tell from the TV feed, and the All-22's not out yet, but it's coming up on week 11. And you got Tress Way jumping up as high as he possibly can, trying to wrangle in some of those punts.
I saw that.
From a high snap perspective, I don't know. I don't know if it's because Rivera drafted the kid and they actually moved up to get a long snapper, and he's just kind of embarrassed at this point. And what else can you do? But someone was talking about it. He is actually the lowest graded special teams player in the NFL.
Wow.
So, and he's not what cost us the game.
No.
But you don't let it come to that. And I feel that he needs to definitely watch some extra snapping film or however the hell he practices or does what he does. But it's driving me crazy. But let's end this thing on a good note, man. Who gets your rally chain this week? Is it your new BFF Pringle, or who gets that rally chain?
Hey man, I gotta give it to the guy who's keeping us in the game. Sam gets it. I mean, I know that's the easy one to do, but without Sam and the way he's throwing that ball around, he's slinging it, we wouldn't be in the position where we are. So I got to give it to Sam. Who do you give it to?
I hear you there with Sam, man. It's just talking about exciting. It is exciting to finally see a real quarterback. But I got to give it to B-Rob. I mean, on the ground, he didn't really do much. He averaged 4.8, and we went away from the run. But I thought he was going to take it to the house twice. I mean, 6 catches for 119 yards. That first touchdown that he had down there, I mean, it's just he's not the receiving running back. Antonio Gibson is. And for B to do that, I think I saw some place where I wrote down he was the first running back to get over 100 yards since Chris Thompson did for us back in the day when we played the 49ers. And we all know how good Chris Thompson was coming out the backfield. And to see B-Rob do that, it's great to see, man. It reminded me, we had a friend come to visit this week for Veterans Day, and I'm taking him around town. And we were on 8th Street, and I drove past a spot where B got carjacked and got shot. And now to see what the kid's doing on the field, it's awesome. It's awesome to see. And hat tip to that kid, man, for, coming back from that adversity and being, I want to say at this point, 100%. And if we could ever get the running game going, to have him be a true dual threat, it'd be great. It'd be great to actually see. And maybe we got a chance to see that this week, because we got a horrible Giants team coming into town. But you know how we play those Giants, so who knows?
Well, as long as the refs are on our side for a change, I think we should be okay.
Oh, we're
but
screwed.
you just but you just never know how our guys will be up for the Giants or be down for the Giants. No gold jackets again, brothers. No gold jackets. So, but
Danny DeVito gets a gold jacket this week. I hope
God
not, man.
dang it, that wouldn't be good at all. That wouldn't be good at all. But I do hear the music playing in the background, which lets me know that we're bringing to a close another episode of the DMV Mess Hall. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for reaching out in Seattle that said that you listen. We greatly appreciate it. It does go a long way. You'd be surprised how long of a way it goes. And with that being said, Ted, you got another week to rep it hard, or don't rep it at all. Rally Captain, Tailgate Ted, deuces.